Good morning, students. Today we are going to talk about the natural resources. It is Unit 2 in your syllabus. So, you are quite aware that our environment provides us with a variety of goods and services necessary for our day to day lives. This includes natural resources. Now, natural resources include air, water, soil, minerals, along with the climate and solar energy, which form the non-living or abiotic part of the nature. The other one is the biotic part, which is considered as the living part of the nature, which includes plants and animals. It also includes the microorganisms like microbes. Plants and animals can only survive as communities of different organisms, all closely linked to each other in their own habitat and requiring a specific abiotic condition. Thus, for forest, grassland, desert, mountains, rivers, lakes, and marine environment all form habitats for spatial communities of plants and animals to live in. Interaction between the abiotic aspects of the nature and specific living organism together form an ecosystem of various types. Many of these living organisms are used for our food resources. Some are linked to our food processes directly, some are not even linked to us. Some, like pollens, they are not directly linked for our food chain, uh, but pollinators and dispersers of plants, soil animals like worms, they are used to recycle the nutrients for plant growth, fungi, and termites that break up dead plant materials so that microorganisms can act on the detritus to reform the soil nutrients. Now, you are quite aware that have you ever thought that you can sell air or you can buy it? Have you ever thought that can you ever buy or sell the sky, the warmth of the land? Now, this idea is strange to us. For if you do not own the freshness of the air, the sparkle of the water, how can you buy them? It's for every living and non-living organisms on the earth. We are a part of the earth, and it is a part of us. The air, which is precious for man, for all these things, we, you, your colleagues, everyone breathe the same air. We share the same breath. The beast, the tree, the man, they are all sharing the same breath. About 10,000 years ago, when mankind changed from hunter gatherer, living in the wilderness areas such as forest and grassland, into agriculturalist and pastoralist, we began to change the environment to suit our own requirements. As our ability grow, we used to start manufacturing, means we used to start growing food and use domestic animal grews. This natural ecosystem were developed into agricultural land. Most traditional agriculturalists depended extensively on rain, streams, rivers for water. Have you ever thought that what is man without beast, without animal? If all the beasts were gone, man would die from great loneliness. This is from the book of Ted Perry. For what happens to the beast soon happens to the man. All things are connected. This we know. The earth does not belong to us, but we belong to earth. This we know. All the things are connected like blood which unites our family. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons and daughters of the earth. We do not view the web of life. We are merely strands in it. Whatever we do, the web, we do to ourselves. These are one of the famous aspects, lines from Ted Perry. You can search it online, it is available online. But it is very much related to our ecosystem. The ecosystem in which we are currently living. How we are dependent on the natural resources that are provided to us. Now, what do you mean by natural resources? So, by definition, natural resources are the variety of goods and services provided by nature which are necessary for our day to day lives. As I've already explained, plants, animals, microbes, or living or non-living part like air, water, soil, minerals, climate, and social energy, which are also known as biotic and abiotic part, are some of the examples of the natural resources. Then the important thing comes is the ecosystem. Interaction between the abiotic aspects of the nature and specific living organisms together forms an ecosystem. Now, ecosystems acts as resource producer and processor. For example, solar energy is the main driving force and source of energy for growth of plants in forest, grassland, and ecosystem. So, as you have came to know that the structure of natural resources and its usefulness is shown in the figure. But before that, let's use to understand the history of our global environment. So let us understand the structure of the natural resources. There are 3 or 4 main components. One is the biotic part, which are plant, animal, and species. The second one is the abiotic part, air, water, minerals, and etc. And the last one is the interaction between them, which forms an ecosystem. So the interaction between the abiotic aspects of nature and specific living organism together form an ecosystem of various types, which we will study in the next chapter of ecosystem. Now, the history of our global environment and changes in land and resource use. The table shows the event in the timeline of the changes in land and resources use which we have done up till now. Some of the examples, many of you are quite, maybe the numbers are not correct. Many of you will not quite agree with those numbers, some of you will. But the numbers are like that. The birth of Earth is around 4600 million years ago, almost approximately. Then the first cell, this all things I have collected from the internet. So now think about it. The traditional, how we have been, how we convert ourselves from hunters to agriculturalist. Let's say from the birth of the earth to the first cell to the first algae, from the explosion of algae and marine forms to the first fish. As per the ecologist and many of the scientists, it is believed that the first life came from water. Then comes the reptiles, confiners, mammals, and dinosaurs almost 25 to 50 million years ago. Whales and horses, grasses, forest, glaciers, and almost 11,500 years ago, humans have been there. It took almost 11,500 years, means we are here on land. Before somewhere we are like hunter-gatherer. We lived in the wilderness, on forest and grassland. But we then began to change the environment to suit our own requirements. We started to develop the agricultural land. We started to grow our own food, use the domestic animals to grow these natural ecosystems into agricultural land. Later we used to use the underground water in the form of wells. The water resources were developed, and to impound water and we created irrigated land by building dams. Recently, we began to use the fertilizers and pesticides to further boost the production of the food from the same amount of land. However, as you see, the agricultural revolution, which has been created, started by 8,000 years ago, by removing and destructing the forest and harnessing the water by construction of irrigation structures, desert formation, change in ecosystem in mild forms, and unequal resource distribution. Almost 240 years ago, we have started industrial revolution to manufacture the fertilizer, to manufacture the high yield crops. But for that, we have used the sources means we have used the path of deforestation, overusing the natural resources, increasing the pollution, damaging the ecosystem, and accelerating the inequality in the resource usage. When the second industrial revolution has begun, almost 120 years ago, all the consequences of the first one has reached its dangerous proportion. Environment consciousness and spread of environment movements, people's right movement have started, but it's already late. 120 years ago, we have, we have destructed the environment almost 12,000 years for now. Mankind has been overusing and depleting the natural resources. The overextensive and intensive use of land has exhausted the capability of the ecosystem to support the growing demand of more and more people, all requiring more intensive use of resources. Industrial growth, urbanization, population growth, enormous increase in the use of consumer goods have all put further stress on the environment. They created great quantities of solid waste. Pollution of air, water, soil have begun to seriously affect the human health. Now, undoing a miracle in our own peculiar way, I hope it is not possible. I hope it is possible. In both say. We know that Earth's atmosphere was so hot that there was no chance of life on land. 600 million years ago, something has happened and life has started begin on Earth. The oxygen level in the atmosphere, which rises up to 1% of the atmosphere, they started a change of miraculous interactive process. Algae started to grow more. In turn, oxygen level started increasing. The algae and fungi started to grow on land, further boosting the oxygen level and decreasing the carbon dioxide level. You see how a single step has created a series of steps and has turned into a life on Earth after a very long period of time. Now, in the next 150 million years, oxygen rised up to 10%. Now, this cooled to Earth atmosphere and diverse forms of land life started blooming, and our life on this Earth 430 million years ago slowly led to this miracle. So, during the last 100 years, we will not talk about the 100 years. If you want to talk, or you are quite aware about this, all these things, that how we have, why we do bother the natural resources. There are too many problems that are related to natural resources, and all these are related to us. Numbers of cycles are there which we need to understand. The fossil fuels, plants on land which absorb the carbon dioxide. When they died, you know what is fossil fuel. I am not going in detail about it. I am just reading the definition. Now, what we are doing? We are cutting the forest for our profit and urbanization, degrading the ecosystem, which boosts the oxygen and reduces the CO content. Well, yes, we are. We are. There is no. Why to bother about natural resources? My question to you: why are we bothering about natural resources? Natural resources to artificial material resources and financial resources is one-way traffic. We develop the natural resources are then converted to in production, means are given to the production houses. They are converted into some artificial material, the material resources together, and this is all for the urban sectors. The changes have brought about a dramatic alteration in the land use pattern and rapidly disappearance of valuable natural ecosystem. The need for more water, more food, more energy, more consumer good is not only a result of the greater population but also the result of the overutilization of the resources by people from more affluent societies and the affluent section of our own. Industrial development, which is, how, before talking about industrial revolution, let me talk about the what are the problems that are associated with the natural resources. some of the